Good afternoon, everyone. So I had the good pleasure of having dinner with Tamika, who warned me that she might take some liberties up here. I didn't know she'd go through my whole presentation before I got up here. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks to Dimensional Insights for opening up the opportunity for me to speak to you about Empire's journey to the cloud. It's kind of a multi-dimensional thing. It's not just the Dimensional Insights product set, but it covers a few other kind of a long journey and a timeline that hopefully you'll be able to gather some of our lessons learned and maybe use them in your own environments. It's also interesting to hear Peter's presentation, and I think that's where a lot of the value comes into these kinds of conferences. We're all kind of in the same industry, or most people in here, I believe, are anyway, in the beverage industry, and it's a kind of interesting to hear how similar the challenges we all have with our technology solutions for our companies are. So quick agenda. First, just introduce myself. I am Jeff Williams. I am the Director of SAP Systems for Empire Distributors. I've been working for Empire for about 8 years. My entire career has more or less been built around SAP and implementing SAP at companies, and I came to Empire in 2014 after they had just replaced the ERP system in Georgia with SAP. So I came in and ultimately built a team of people, and we helped kind of remediate a situation there, and then subsequently rolled out SAP to our entire company. So that's kind of part of this journey that we went on that included a lot of movement to the cloud. But whenever I come to, and here's the, whenever I come to the DC area, I'm reminded of a trip we took when I was a kid here. So it was 1977. So it was the year after the bicentennial celebrations were here, and my parents had seen a lot of that activity on the news with the fireworks and the parades and whatnot, and thought it'd be a good idea to take us up here and show my brother and I the Capitol. So the one problem we had was we did not have a car that was suitable for a trip from Columbia, South Carolina, where I grew up, all the way up to the DC area and safely and back and forth. And so my father, being a problem solver, like many of us in this room are probably problem solvers, took it upon himself to go to the dealership without any counsel from my mother or anyone else and come back with a solution to this problem. My father is colorblind, so part of his solution was to pick a car out based on the description, not necessarily what it looked like. So he came back with a lime green, no air conditioning, dark vinyl interior, Volkswagen bus for us to take the trip up here in. Of course, my brother and I were thrilled because we said, well, we each get our own seat. We've got no fighting over the back seat and whatnot. So what no one could anticipate was the kind of heat wave that took over the Southeast that week. So it was the July 4th week of 1977. Some of us in here were around, but if you weren't on a trip like this, you probably wouldn't have remembered it. But I checked it against Google, which you can find anything on Google. If you type July 4th, 1977 heat map, you get what happened on that day. So this is what we were up against. We were driving 107, 108 degree temperatures for the week. And I guess the punchline of the whole story is we get back, and my father, within a week, unloads the car. So it was the first new car we ever had in our family. It lasted about 2 weeks in our family before it was gone. And I think it's my point of all this is there are certain things that you experience in life that you will never forget, but you don't necessarily need to repeat them. So we had a few of those at Empire. I've been there for 8 years. We've had multiple, but there's one in particular I'd like to talk about that is kind of the genesis story for our move to the cloud. So we'll come back to that in a little bit. First, a little bit about Empire. Very similar to Peter. This is going to look like a repeat slide in many ways. We cover some of the same states. We do some of the same things. We're an alcohol distributor, spirits, wine, beer, and non-alcs. We operate in a 4-state region. Our North Carolina is their Alabama. So in North Carolina, it's state controlled on the spirits. So we just do wine and beer in North Carolina. We do the state of Tennessee and a small office out in Colorado and the entire state of Georgia. Our headquarters is in Georgia. We are a third generation. Our current president is the grandson of the founder of the company. That's him in the picture in the middle there, who greets us when we come to the lobby every day. And I have seen some hints of the fourth generation walking around. But they are not officially there yet. So it's kind of interesting. One thing different, we still feel like a family company, but we were purchased by Berkshire Hathaway back in 2010. So we are part of the Berkshire Hathaway family of companies via an acquisition. Our parent company, McLean Distributors, is a food distributor out of Texas. Through our 4 states, we have 9 physical warehouses and 14 sales offices, and about 700, what did I put there, 750? I think that's an estimate. That's about right, about 750 users of Dimensional Insights tools. We use ProDiver, DiveTab, DivePort, NetDiver, Program Advisor, and GL Advisor, so the whole product suite. Let's take a quick look at what Empire looked like before we started down the path of moving to the cloud. So first of all, I think some of you may have met Bill McPhail here. He's our CIO, and he presented here about 3 or 4 years ago. Bill and I, from the time we got there, did not want to be owners of a data center. We didn't want a data center attached to our warehouses. We didn't want the risk associated with that or the maintenance and upkeep associated with that. So we always, from the beginning, had the idea that we needed to move things out, either to a co-location facility or truly a cloud solution for some of our applications. But the last thing we wanted was to be, and if you'd seen we're in a new warehouse now, if you'd seen our old facility, you'd know even more why. You don't necessarily want to have your important equipment and mission critical applications working or running in a facility attached to our warehouse. But what ended up taking a good bit more time to get started on that path than we wanted to, because we had some competing objectives. When Kahn first, or Empire first, decided that we were going to go with SAP, they wanted it to be across all states in one single solution. The first pass at that was just Georgia. So you end up with kind of a mixed bag of how our technology infrastructure was set up. And so this is what we looked like across our 4 states when I got there in end of 2014, beginning of 2015. In Georgia, we had just gone live with a new SAP ERP system, and we had ProDiver as an on-premise installation there, an on-premise solution. In Tennessee, we had really 4 locations. Nashville and Chattanooga were an acquisition that used to be a single company, so we kind of think of them as one and the same, and they were on the same ERP system. We had Knoxville, which was an acquisition that was running a Great Plains system, and Memphis was running our homegrown Kia system, which is the same thing that was running in North Carolina and what was replaced in Georgia. That was something that we used for many, many years, and it was still there. So, and then Colorado had the Great Plains ERP system. So we had 5 or 6 ERP systems, all running with different data structures, different processes, and whatnot. And the question was always coming to us from the executive team, how do we get all of this data represented in one spot? How can I see how the whole company is doing? Well, it's very difficult to answer when in one state a SKU is called 51345 and over here it's 67456. You know, we had no continuity between the ERP systems of how we defined our data structures and our data. So we had a lot of work to do. But this is what we looked like before we got to the cloud. So when I was mentioning that there were events that happened that were similar to my trip up to DC that are not to be repeated, one of those things was, and everyone in here I think is in the beverage industry, so we all know that October, November, December are the busy times, right? So we had the first in 2015 on the shipments that were supposed to go out on Christmas Eve. We had a terrible storm come through Atlanta, and that storm knocked out the power, and our generator failed to come on. So if you look at this screen right here, you can see that what that would have impacted our Kia, our North Carolina Kia, our Memphis Kia, and a couple of local installations of Diver were all running out of our warehouse in Atlanta. When that generator failed to come on, all activity shut down for, not just for Georgia, but for the entire state of North Carolina and Memphis. So it just further exposed us. We're at great risk here with the current way we have all this set up. So I call that the Big Bang on this one, because it's kind of a genesis. It's kind of a genesis story for what really kicked us into motion. But I think the takeaway from this slide is kind of busy. We started this, and that happened in December of 2015, and it wasn't until I guess we were fully. I have January 2021. This is not really Diver related, but I would say until we got SAP to the managed cloud, 6 years later, we weren't fully. We had not fully migrated things away from local installations for our critical systems. So it took a lot of time. It was time well spent. You can see as we had these competing objectives I talked about, we had Memphis, then Knoxville, Colorado. So these were SAP implementations that we did every 6 months or so. We would roll out to a new location, train the users, roll it out. But while we were doing that, we were still running SAP on a Blade server in our Atlanta location, so we were still at risk. So as we rolled Memphis on, well, now or Knoxville, as soon as we got Knoxville on, they weren't at risk before, but now they are if we were to have the same situation happen again and lose the power in Atlanta. Now they're all going down. So at some point in there, it looks like around 2017, we began this migration because we had multiple instances of Diver, and each of the divers had kind of a different feel for the data, different things in the console panel. They were all local installations and being fed from manual data feeds. We met with Dimensional Insights and said we really need to get this into a single instance of Diver across all of our states. Until we get SAP rolled out, this will at least give us the ability to merge everything in and report against everything. We'd have to do some data normalization to make that happen, but that was kind of the vision of that. And in doing that, we went away from an on-premise installation and went to the cloud version of Diver. And that has proven to be very strategic and beneficial to us in a number of ways. Our current data structure and data flow takes data out of SAP through some 17 or 20 data extracts that we do. Those go out into a data hub. It's a SQL-based data hub that we developed custom. And from that data hub, we send data to Dimensional Insights. And Dimensional Insights handles all the mapping, all of the things that need to happen to make that get presented in Diver, and we update it every day. Right now, we have all of our states represented on there. For a period of time before everyone was on SAP, we had some of that data going up from other ERP systems and kind of normalizing the data. At some point in time, and this is one of those lessons learned, at some point in time, we started to, once we had the cloud Diver solution and there were still some divers that were local, that became sort of the bait for people. Because as you all know, or maybe you don't, but ERP systems, especially SAP, is kind of feared by a lot of, so people weren't exactly looking forward to our team coming out and saying, hey, we're putting SAP in here. But one of the things we could say is we're putting SAP in here and you're going to get Cloud Diver. And Cloud Diver is a whole lot better than what you've got because in the one you've got, say, 40 characteristics you can dive on. In Cloud Diver, we built it out to have 125 plus. There was really, we met with everybody in the company, all the sales teams from different states, said, what is it you really want in Diver? We heard from them, we put it in there, we built it into the cloud solution. So it was something everyone looked forward to. So it got to the point where by the time we got to North Carolina, which was in 2019, people were saying, hey, when are you coming to North Carolina? We really need SAP. Get Kia out, get the Cloud Diver in, come see us. And so we did the entire state of North Carolina in 2019. And then our last, the last move was to take SAP from a co-location site where we had moved it as an interim step, and we took that and moved it up to a managed service facility where we buy SAP from through our partners up there, NTT Data Business Services. So right now, if you were to look after going through all of this, if you were to look at our current situation, this is what we looked like, which is a whole lot cleaner than it looked like when I got there in 2015. So now we have all of our 9 facilities and 14 sales offices feeding into a single, and I've got a cloud here. I know technically it's probably not a cloud. There are parts of it that are and parts of it that aren't, but they are not locally installed. And we have a single instance of SAP where all of our systems run. So we're all running on a single system that feeds into all of our Dimensional Insight tool set. Everyone's looking at a single version of everything, and it's super clean. And so when I look at this, and one of the things, going through this exercise of trying to prepare for this gave me an opportunity to look back over, that journey we went on for 8 years, and it really is, oftentimes we don't look back, we're just looking forward, trying to get things done, but it's really meaningful, and I shared it with our team back in Atlanta. Look at what we look like now versus what we looked like just 7 years ago, And so it's been a very it's been a meaningful journey for us, and it's been strategic, and it's really built us in a place where we can have a lot of success going forward. So this last slide kind of talks about the benefits of going to this. The part about trying to bait people into our SAP and other strategic initiatives with things that they desire, basically is something that I kind of thought of later in this process. But here, I mentioned earlier that we merged multiple instances into one instance. Of course, that was key. One thing that we was on that timeline was the GL Advisor. GL Advisor is where we present basically our P&L data across all locations with the appropriate level of authority, so that if I'm a manager in a North Carolina location, I can only see North Carolina. It's updated daily, it's updated live during our close, which we do every 4 weeks because of Berkshire Hathaway. It's updated every 2 hours during those days that we're going through a financial close. So we have that up in the Dimensional Insights, accessible from anywhere through a browser. So all of our users across 4 states, and those that may not even be in those states, they're out traveling or off on a conference or whatnot, can check that data from wherever they are. We enhanced the console panel. I think that's critical if you're going to make a move like this. Take advantage of the fact that you're going through all the effort to move it from an on-premise solution to a cloud solution, and enhance it, build it, and make it stronger. And the integration service has been great. There were times when we were an on-premise customer for ProDiver where sales would run late, or not sales, deliveries would run late in the morning, and Diver doesn't get updated. Someone calls and says, hey, can you update Diver? And then it becomes kind of a race to figure out how you get all the data out and back to the sales team in time to see what they need to see. Now we send the data, and there's a process in place that just takes care of that. So it's really on us just to send the data, and an update happens, which is really nice. So I think, Mike, I think you were going to come up and.
Yeah, well, actually, before I talk about some more cloud stuff, I didn't have any questions for you guys, because it's way more interesting to hear from an actual customer than from me. Anyone curious about his experiences? Well, there'll be a chance afterward as well, and maybe I'll put some more ideas in your head here as I go forward. So, let's see, here we go. These are my thoughts, not yours. So, one of the things I've gotten to do at Dimensional Insight over the years is around 20 plus years ago, we started hosting our customers in a data center. So, the cloud options at our company sort of were born back then. And I launched that, and I still have oversight over that today. So there's been a lot of just interesting trends to see over time, and what makes the cloud migration the right choice for someone, and when is it not the right choice, and how do you do it? So I'll throw some of these things out here, just things to think about, whether you're migrating Diver or any other kind of sort of system. You can divide how you host something really into 2 categories, on-premise or cloud. On-premise just means that you own the hardware, basically, right? That you're responsible for the hardware. So it could be in your warehouse, it could be in the janitor closet, it could be in a third-party data center. You could have a real data center, like some of our hospital customers will just have thousands of computers in a data center that they own, right? Cloud is kicking that responsibility over hardware to somebody else, just somewhere else, the cloud, right? Do you know where the term cloud comes from? Yeah, so, William knows, he's an engineer, so thank you, William. But in network diagrams of old, when you were drawing like this site's connected to that site, you just sort of like wires, and you sort of and something happens in the middle. You draw a little cloud, and then later on they're like, well, what if we put servers there? And now there are suddenly servers in the cloud. So there we go. You might also combine these things. Now, when you go cloud, it might be that you just through your servers, like you're renting VMs from, say, Amazon, or it might be you're contracting with a service provider, like to run SAP or Diver for you, right? Now, there's no right answer no single right answer for all organizations. The challenge here is you're trying to balance on the left, being effective. You want people to be able to do their jobs. You want to be efficient with the money you're spending and their time. And the other side is cost. And in the middle, you've got to figure out what's important to you in terms of, risk tolerance. Like, yeah, I don't want to lose power and be out for a day. That's not acceptable. Or maybe it is, depending on what the system is. You want to make sure you've got the performance and scalability you need. Security is important. How is it going to interact with other things? And then who's responsible? So division of labor, which is the one I always sort of think it's good to think about, right? So here in red, it's your responsibility, and here in green, it's someone else's responsibility you're paying for. On-premise on the left, you've got to worry about all those things. And as you come to the right, more and more of that responsibility and control is being given up, right? So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But you can kind of decide based on the talents of your team, the resources, your goals overall. Running one thing, you're not going to have your own data center for just one little service. But if you're big enough, maybe that makes sense. So just a few observations to throw out there over time, comparing these options that we've seen. On-premise can work, like I said, for when you really want the most control and you've got a sophisticated IT organization and you've got, it just makes sense for the scale of what you're operating at. You still got to be careful though, because it is expensive to have the redundant power and the redundant network and all the sysadmins ready to be paged. So like, it's not like it's free, but it's not, for me anyway, this is just personal opinion, it doesn't have to be cloud, right? But you just think about it because you do have to worry about many things. And if you do that way, usually if you can't build your own data center, then you go with a third party to co-locate for you because they'll take care of your air conditioning, your power, your networking, and things like that. For example, the facility that DI rents from, we have two. We have one in Boston, we have one in Amsterdam. And they're both like, we have 8 utility connections, to the building, and we've got generators on the roof, we've got so many gallons of diesel ready to go for so much period of time. We have UPSs, and everything's being tested all the time. And so you have some real confidence that it's gonna be okay, right? Infrastructure as a service, those are the rented VMs from, say, Amazon or Google or Azure. And this is kind of saying, all right, well, hardware is going to be run by somebody else, but you still got to have your sysadmins like configure the hardware, keep things up to date, and then so on. And what we've seen is it works really well for some situations. In other situations, people are kind of guided by the complex pricing to buy under-resourced machines. And they go, why is your stuff crappy? It's like, well, our stuff's crappy because your hardware is crappy, but I'm in the cloud. So, okay, but you may have to be careful about what specific things you're buying. As far as I can tell, you kind of need to have expertise in that, right? In how to deal with IaaS providers. And some organizations have this. That's the direction they that's how they like to go. Platform as a service is basically, like your hosted SAP or hosted Diver situations where you're going to focus more on running that system, not dealing with the hardware or the virtual machine server configuration or keeping the updates installed or things like that. How that goes depends on the service and the provider, right? That could be all over the place, and a lot of options there. And the final one is a specialization of that software as a service, where it's really aimed at end users. You're not going to be on there banging around in Workbench. You're just like, I would like to see the Diver reports or whatever other service it is, and it's really aimed at end users. And that can be good in certain situations. And we offer both of these last two things because, and people sort of slide back and forth, because one of the advantages is you have our consulting team, our support team, they can get in there and help you. And so you can be like, yes, I just want software as a service, except I'd also like to go in there and Workbench and make stuff. Like, okay, we can do that. It's not technically software as a service anymore, but we'll call it whatever you want. And basically, as long as we agree on who's responsible for what, like that flexibility exists. So just an idea to think about when you're making these decisions is, try to categorize the systems you have and set goals. What are you trying to accomplish? How are you going to measure that you were successful? Think of these considerations and prepare to make trade-offs. You probably can't have everything unless you have infinite money, which, do we have any cannabis in the room? I think they have infinite money, but okay. Leverage your strengths that you have organizationally in your people and the way things are set up, and be flexible. Try to work in phases. The way you guys did it sort of state by state or project by project is way better than maybe just saying, like, tomorrow we're just going to flip everything, right? It's hard to do that. We have a slide on sort of just the differences we talked about, but I'll just leave it here with the DI-specific side of things, which is, we have been doing this for over 20 years, so if you need a place to host Diver and you're willing to give up some of that control, it's an option that's available to you. We did write the software, so the hardware we buy is really good at running our software, and we can get in there and help you to whatever degree you want very easily. So with that, maybe there's a chance for any questions for me, or better yet, for Jeff on this journey. Anyone? No? Well, thanks. Oh, wait, Bob. Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah, so like I said, we host in the US and in Amsterdam. And so, yeah, so Bob's giving a good shout out to the Leiden team. They do incredible work there. Yep. Yeah, thank you. Yep.